Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today we get the opportunity to work on a Daiwa Bait and Run or Bite and Run reel. I think it's called the Black Widow. And well, we're going to show you how to take this reel apart, how to service it, how to keep it for a long time to come. Now this one's owned by Jamie or Jaime. I'm not quite sure which it is because I only got a letter and they're kind of spelled the same way. And well, we'll show you how the reel is made, how to keep it running. Jamie's in Las Vegas. Makes me wonder how the reel is used, maybe out on Lake Powell or the lake Mead. But no, I'm always interested in how these reels get fished, particularly in the desert. So we're going to start by taking off the exterior pieces and parts. And that starts with the spool that you saw me remove, and now the handle. And when I take the handle that has the through bars through, I like to put that screw right back in there so I don't lose it. And I like to take the pieces and parts that I remove and put them into a parts tray. Well, while I'm taking off some of the other pieces and parts, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, particularly if you like the art of fishing reel service and repair. And well, I cover all kinds of fishing reels. Today it's the current line fishing reel for Daiwa on the bait and run side, or bite and run side. Bait runners are popular. It allows you to float bait out there. And well, you don't have to flip the bail to release the line. That's controlled by a lower drag. And when it's time to react to a strike, you have a retrieve mode that's controlled by the top drag. It's an interesting piece all the way around. Speaking of pieces, as you remove those pieces and parts, I recommend that you take pictures along the way, because there's going to be a couple of critical junctures you'll face that if you're not paying attention, well, you might not remember the order or the sequence or the orientation of a particular piece that you removed. And then, well, you might not know how to put it back together again. Now we're using a series of micro screwdrivers here because there's some very small screws in this holding that trip arm in place. We have to remove this trip arm in order to remove the case. Not quite sure if we'll be able to get that off. Okay, the one side came off. Generally speaking, if I can get away with removing this bezel without touching this one, that's what I would prefer to do. All right, there's a rubber band that's hiding the access to the bottom part here to remove this. So you need to be careful. I always fear that this rubber band gets brittle, and then it's going to snap on you, and then, well, I think you kind of get where I'm going with that, right? The rubber band comes off. This happened on the old Quantum reels as well. The rubber band comes off first. Then we have a little clip here that you want to work out. It's a spring clip. Take pictures again, know the clip. And then we can remove the bottom cap. That should enable us to remove the bezel. There's one more screw here. Notice this one is a flat-sided screw rather than a rounded screw that the other two were. Just from a product orientation standpoint. Now let's see if we can slide this down. Not sure if we can, or if maybe this screw here may be holding it in. They go to extremes to kind of make this thing work or not work with you. Well, typical to Daiwa, there's one more. They hide it in the handle here. I thought it was the side plate screw, but it's the top screw. I just consulted the schematic to find that. And a very long screw for that one. Now we should be able to pull down and off and out with this. And notice there's a little Daiwa tag button that also is part of the case. And you're going to remove that. Alright, well, we took the one out already. So now I think what we want to do next is we want to focus on removing the rotor, because it looks like the case here is buried under the rotor. First one of these I'm working on, so welcome to amateur hour. Most of these have a similar nature to them once you understand the mechanics of it and how the reel works. I was just working on a reel. I have no clue how it works. It's an older one, but I'm sure somebody out there is going to own one of them is going to tell me, and I'll make everything better. Two of those spool height adjusters, the click ratchet, and a metal washer that goes underneath those. I'll keep those all together. Next up then is to remove the tie down clip. And find another section of the parts tray for that. And these are usually metal, but I guess, well, in the modern age, somebody decided to go with a plastic retention clip. Guess that doesn't matter too much. And you can probably get away with a box wrench on this one, but since I have my ratchets close at hand, we're going to use that. And notice that this is a reverse thread. In other words, it's coming off the way you would normally tighten it, which would be a clockwise manner. Bring that into the parts tray. Bring our rotor up. Notice that you want to take a picture here. You have a tie-down clip here. There is an instant anti-reverse override on this one. Notice that you have a spring here connecting to a post there. A lot of times when you go to work on a reel like this, that will shoot. So just be careful about that as you work on it. Alright, let's bring this over. Looks like we have a couple more screws here. And this will just give us a look into the case. Take those three, put those in another corner of my case, along with the other one that I took out earlier. Comparing them, they're all the same size screws, so no worry there. And we got one more down here. And we'll get that inside look to the reel. Alright, we should be able to remove this case now. And with this case removed, I want to go put that screw back in here. That was the little screw that we had. If you keep the arm on, you don't risk having the other part pop out on you. So if we keep that arm on, this is not going to move on us. Relatively simple inside to this reel. I'm not sure if this will just come out or if we need, looks like we need to remove the axle shaft to get there. So let's go do that. There's I guess the best thing to do is spin it at this point, bring it down. There's a tie down to this. We'll remove that screw. It's just being annoying. Alright, remove the screw and the clip as one. That's the clip and the screw. Now we can remove the axle shaft, remove the crosswind block, remove the main gear, remove the oscillation gear. There's a bearing underneath. We want to clean the case and we want to oil that bearing. One thing that's interesting here is we have a plastic bushing in the back of this case. Usually a reel of this description would have a bearing back there. Kind of surprised by that. And the last thing we need to do then, I'm going to go to two cases here because I got a couple of parts in different places that are better served. I'm going to take the internal parts and put them in a second parts tray. And we got our top end here. That's the pinion gear, the bearing, and the anti-reverse. So you want to take that picture here. You want to make sure you're good with this. You also want to make sure as you're working this that you don't lose that spring on the override. So there are 3 screws holding this on. And pictures help. Take these out and make sure that you check the length of the screws. They're all the same. Again, I'm in the second parts tray now. Lots of parts on this one. And let's see if we can, what we need to do here. I guess. Okay, I've removed that little spring. That's always nerve-wracking. Get that out of the way and we should be able to pull this assembly up and out. There we go. Pull that assembly up. That'll give you your anti-reverse, which is the lower end, and the bearing, which is the upper end. You want to make sure that they're clean, and these are. We're going to keep this assembly intact then. We are going to re-grease. The top end's got the bearing. We're going to oil the bearing. Right back in. And with that in, my favorite part of the whole exercise, putting that little spring back on. Usually putting it on without losing it. These things want to shoot all the time. I'm going to use my little pick. Hang it up and over the post. Bring it down. Oh, thought I had it. Okay, we're back with our spring. There you go. All right, so we took that out. We lubricated it up. Your case has been cleaned. It's a little bit of just cleaning up the rest now and reassembling. So let's grab some paper towels. clean up our axle shaft. Inspect it, make sure there's no burrs or any kind of damage on it at all. Remember, we had to take the axle shaft out in order to remove the main gear, so it goes in opposite. You need to put the main gear back in before you put the axle shaft back in. This one's dry, it needs greases and oils. Same to be said about our oscillation gear. Same to be said about our crosswind block. All the greases in that are on the outside. So that's what we want to do next. Okay, let's take that grease. Use fishing wheel grease, please, when you do this. You want to grease the back where it's going to ride over that bearing. Grease the teeth. So I'm not sure how long the reel's been fished, but it is time for a service. The greases are all gone. When you bring your oscillation gear in, make sure that the stud is in the down position. We can do two more things, but we haven't put the cap back on the top on the pinion gear, so just make sure that you're aware of that. You can bring the oscillation gear in. And bring the grease over to the main gear. There's some grease stuck on there. I clean off the old grease so that it doesn't affect the performance of the reel. You don't need dirt getting into new grease. Now we can bring our main gear back in. And before we put that axle shaft in, we need to go back, do two things. We have the cap here. And we have the 3 screws that go in. So that's the next job. And while I'm doing this, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel, I want to encourage you to ask those questions. I do try to help get people additional information. I do try to show you how to service your reels so that you can do it yourself. And well, I try to explain how reels are made, who makes them, what purpose they serve, and so on. So if you have any of those questions, leave them in the comment section. I will try to answer those for you and get you going again if you're stuck on a project, or perhaps just get you more information so that you're more knowledgeable, and well, you can use that knowledge to your advantage at some point. Like greasing onto our axle shaft, bring it down through the crosswind block into that rear drag set. And then there's 2 slots in that axle shaft that are going to accept your collar. We left that screw in, we couldn't get it out, so at least we know it's there. Tie that down, and now we can put that side case back on. If we haven't done this already, we want to oil that. There is a little washer here. We'll put that back onto the main gear. Oil that bearing, bring the whole assembly over and bring that on. You want to make sure you get a nice snap to this, like you just heard. Got one more part in that first set. That's the washer that's going to go on top of that bearing here and under the rotor. I'm going to go remove those parts tray. I have the secondary parts tray. Come back to the first. And now we have the side plate screws here. And we'll just work through these. The small ones, the 2 smallest of those go up top here. Now we have the 3 side plate screws. 2 of them are hidden. So lots of moving parts in this one, but they're all relatively accessible, and the design is good enough that you can stay focused on this as you do work on the reel. That's always encouraging. Next up then is that bezel. The bezel has that little white Daiwa piece. Guess we're going to float that in here somehow. It's more of an annoyance than anything. I would think that if you're going to do this, why not just make it so that it's in the case, not something you have to add as an afterthought. Bring your bezel up and over. There's a little clip that needs to be indented here. That's your bezel. Remember the long screw here. Don't forget this one. I've seen a lot of reels come into my shop that have forgotten that that screw was there and never knew that that screw was there, and well, snapped off the whole piece of the bezel. And then it's off to the parts ordering companies to try and find a replacement. That's that one. And we have a small screw here. It ties this end down. We're on a lot of different tools here. I do notice that. I'm thinking I put the wrong one in here. All of the screws are in. Let's put the other arm on for the trip lever. So it's funny, this reel is called the Black Widow, according to the little schematic here. You would think that the one screw that's showing here, they would make black. I don't know. Just saying, as they say, right? Just saying. Seemed to me that the one exposed screw should be case coordinated. Alright, I'm going to put the long screw in here to tie this down. Next up then we have the bezel. There's an inner ring to the bezel that's going to face out. And we have our adjuster. Now you got to get that in over this little clip here. That's going to make the noise. Make sure that that gets seated properly. Then you have the indentation for the swing clip. So put that into one side, roll it over, press down. That will lock in, just like that. Then my one that I hate the most, it's that little rubber band. Be careful on it, especially if this reel is 3 or 4 or 5 years old and it's subjected to a harsh environment. That band breaks. Alright, that's that end of it. Wow. Moving on down the road, huh? Alright, we've got the washer. So we can put our rotor on next. Bring the rotor nut over. This is reverse threaded. My hands are telling me to go the way that you would take it off, you learn very quickly that it won't thread. So this is a counterclockwise thread. Make sure you change the throw on your ratchet, tighten it down, and give it a spin before you do anything else. It's spinning nicely. It's got new fresh grease and everything in it. Should. Here's our tie down clamp now. You need to line that up with a tie down hole. That one's not lining up. Sometimes you can flip it over, or you can just move it to the other hole. That one looks good. Tie down screw. Again, small screws. Micro screwdrivers, kind of crazy. Keeps your tool business in business, I guess, if you have to buy all these different little tools for this kind of thing. Okay, I just discovered that the one I was trying to put there belongs here. This one belongs up there. It's funny, I was looking at the other one, the arm screw, thinking that was the answer. It wasn't. Okay, tighten that down. We have our metal washer goes next. And we have the click ratchet. That's going to make the noise when the wheel is running outward. We have the two spool shim height adjusters. They go next. We have our handle and handle screw. Let's tighten that down. We'll show you how to service the drags, then we'll give it a final test. The Daiwa Bite and Run Black Widow. Fishing somewhere in Las Vegas. In and around. Okay. Clip comes off. Alright, to service that, we've removed the cap, which was held in by a retention washer. And this is a little bit of a surprise by today's standards, but these happen to be felt washers. So felt washers shouldn't be dry. This is terribly dry. You can either use grease or oil on them, but you need to keep them wet. If you don't, they're subject to tear. Felt washers are fine. There's nothing wrong with a felt washer. But one of the things you need to do is to make sure that if you are using the felt washers, that they stay lubricated. Now, if you find that you're using this and you're fighting big fish and the drags aren't holding, and you're having issues with the felt washers, you can always upgrade these to a Carbon Tex kind of aftermarket solution if needed. But if it's not needed, don't need it. No, you don't need to do that. Okay, with the third one in and oiled, the cap washer goes over the top. The retention clip goes in. And that's what it takes to service it. And again, if you have one of these reels, pay particular attention that they are felt washers. You do need to service that. You can't skip that step. Alright, we got a little bit of extra tag end on this braid. I'm sure when I go to test it, it's going to flip-flop around. So we're going to try and take a little bit of this off here. Spool goes on. Drag adjuster button goes on. Time for a test. Glove comes off. Alright, lots of tools there. Wow. Okay. Daiwa Black Widow BR 5000A Bite and Run. Nice smooth operating reel all the way around. We saw it probably could benefit from another burring rather than a bushing on this side, but that's not terrible. We also mentioned the fact that it does have the felt washers in it, and if you do need more strength in your washers, go to Carbon Tex. It's not going to change the max drag on the reel, but it will help you with that. Let's go to bait feeder mode. That'll allow you to spin your reel out. When you get that bite, you hit it. That locks in your channel. You're ready to go. This is your adjuster for your rear drags. We didn't service those. Typically, if your rear drags are holding, they don't require any service. They're hard washers, and those hard washers rarely wear out, particularly on bait feeder reels. So there you go. All right, that's the service of the Black Widow BR 5000A Daiwa Bite and Run fishing reel. I hope you've enjoyed that. Before I leave, I want to thank our first responders, our police, fire, safety, rescue, everybody involved in keeping us out of harm's way. I truly appreciate your career choice and your dedication to task. I also want to thank everybody who's been watching, everybody who helps make this channel successful, and well, folks like Jamie, Amy, I'm not quite sure, for sending their reels in so that they can become the subjects of videos while they're getting serviced. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle, wishing everybody a great day.